Chinese President Xi Jinping is in Hong Kong, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the former British colony returning to Chinese rule.
It's his first trip outside of mainland China since the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic nearly 2.5 years ago. President Xi was welcomed by supporters, waving Hong Kong and Chinese flags as his train pulled into the station. His visit to Hong Kong comes in spite of a surge in COVID cases across the territory. Xi's visit also comes after pro-democracy protests in 2019 led to clashes with police and thousands of arrests. The protests led Beijing to draft a national security law to crack down on those seeking independence from mainland China.
Joining us now for more on this is Yasheng Huang. He's a professor of global economics and management at MIT Sloan School of Management. Professor Huang, welcome. It's great to have you with us. So, how significant would you say President Xi's trip to Hong Kong is?
I think it's quite significant. There are three reasons. One is, as you pointed out, that's his first trip outside of China proper since 2 years ago, since the pandemic. The other is that China is facing the leadership transition at the end of this year. So this is an every 10-year event. And there's debate whether or not he's going to step down or he's going to stay on. And how Hong Kong is going to be handled is going to be significant for that leadership transition. The third reason is that the Chinese domestic economy, Chinese domestic politics are fundamentally different from 2019 when China decided to crack down on Hong Kong protesters. The COVID-19 policy is very controversial in China. Chinese economy has significantly slowed down. So these background factors are very important for his visit.
Well, we did mention those protests and the crackdown on those pro-democracy protests back in 2019. What does his presence in Hong Kong now mean for residents of the territory?
Well, I think it's very, very important that he has to present that his policy has worked. And there's evidence that there's quite a bit of backlash against his policy. Foreigners are leaving the territory. The economic confidence in the future of Hong Kong is sliding. I think I watched his speech when he arrived. I think he gave some conciliatory gestures to Hong Kong, indicating that the one country, two systems is still a very important formula. And he doesn't really single out the protesters. He doesn't have the kind of harsh language that he had before.
And Professor Huang, as we've been discussing, his visit is not without controversy. As you know, that China promised a significant amount of autonomy for those 50 years, right? We're in the middle of those 50 years, and it hasn't really been the case. We're not even halfway there. And many critics are saying that Beijing is actively eroding many rights and freedoms in the city. What does President Xi have to say specifically about the future of Hong Kong?
Yeah, so he's not that specific when he arrived, when he gave that speech upon his arrival. But there's more emphasis on the two-system part of the one country, two system formula than before. Before, the speeches warned about separation from China, ideological independence, and that kind of phrases. We don't see any of that in that particular speech. I don't know whether that signals a fundamental change in policy, but it is consistent with what has been happening in China, which is that the hardline policy, both on economy and on Hong Kong, is producing backlashes. It is causing economic slowdown of the region. So I won't be surprised that there is some adjustment of the policy more toward the moderation rather than toward the hardline position that he had.
Interesting. It would be interesting to see that sort of moderation in that direction.
Yeah, we'll continue to watch how this plays out. Professor Yasheng Huang, Professor, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.